capital. And this is why, using our illustration from last week, after fights, you're exhausted, you're beat, you're spent. It's because you consume so much energy. Now tie that back into what Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3 says in the Amplified. It says, just think of him who endured from sinners such a grievous opposition and bitter hostility against himself. Reckon up and consider it all in comparison with your trials. In other words, look at what Jesus did. Look at what he encountered. Look at how he had to take on the sin of the world. Look at the betrayal that he experienced from his disciples. Look at his path, his journey, the course that God put him on, dying at 33, spending all that time in silent years when no one even really knew about him. You only hear about him a couple of times between age 0 and age 30. The false accusations. It says, look at it in comparison with your trial. Not to minimize yours, but it says, look at it in comparison. Why? So that you may not, look at these adjectives, grow weary. Sounds like turning over emotions. Get exhausted. Lose heart. And faint in your mind. He's trying to dethrone God in your mind. This is why praise is so powerful. This is why you want to make the discipline, and it's a discipline, of acknowledging even the littlest things that God's doing in your life. Because your default button is to get in a deficit as the day progresses with all the negative things you absorb. So you've got to find a way to tilt the scales back. You've got to try to maintain your equilibrium, so to speak, if not, get a surplus. So this means when you go to Dwayne Reed or Rite Aid and the line's long and all of a sudden another cashier opens up and they say, I'll take you, ma'am. Even though that may not get you out of debt, that's a good opportunity to give God a shout out. Because you're saying, you know what? You were looking out for me. When you drive and you go to the mall, perhaps, and you get a good parking spot, someone pulls out I know it's not Boaz. I know you want to be married and you want to have a child, but that's a good opportunity to say, you know what, God? I have so many things coming at me nonstop that I'm going to use this as an opportunity to thank you. It's a small thing, but I've shared this before, there's a type of Bible that I enjoy, and it's very rare, and it's difficult to purchase, and it's scarcity value, and they're very expensive, but the Lord's been gracious enough to allow me to find them. And it was published in 1991, and when I purchased the Bible, it had somebody else's name on it. Now, I'm kind of particular. I just didn't want to be staring at someone else's name while I'm having my quiet time. But I had to be real careful not to damage the Bible. I Googled, how do you remove a name off a Bible and all these things? And I just so happened to be walking down the street one day, and something on the inside of me said, go inside that shoe store. So I went in the shoe store. I knew he had to be a brother. I said, you know what? I got an odd request for you, bro. But you see this Bible? I just bought this off eBay, and I'm trying to get the person's name off it. He just coincidentally happened to have the right chemical that he put on a napkin and wiped it twice, and it's gone. Now, I know that's not big to you. But that was a chance for me to give God a shout out. I've gone to my in-laws and have been running around all day long, and just coincidentally, last weekend, my father-in-law decided that it was time to grill ribeyes. Costco ribeyes. I'm not talking about a lot of fat. I'm talking about a lot of meat. And he knows I love steak. You know, what's my point? You've got to do things to counteract the incessant leak. Why? Because he's trying to dethrone God in your mind. Now you have to ask yourself, what's your list? What are the things that mean a lot to you? What are the things? I know it's not the big things. It's not the cataclysmic things, but it's just enough to keep you going. It's enough momentum to help you make it through lunch, to help you make it through the afternoon, to help you make it through dinner. And quite frankly, if we can't express gratitude over the small things, why should we expect God to give us big things? God's not going to give you more to be less appreciative of. If you can't thank him for cereal, why should he give you caviar? He's not going to, it's against his nature to give you more to do less with. He can't reward rebellion. So he wants to dethrone God in your mind. He's the father of hopelessness. Satan, see, when we looked at our circles, remember our circles, it's disappointment, circle number 1. Discouragement is circle number 2. Depression is circle number 3. Despondency was circle number 4. And then despair, which is full-fledged hopelessness. We want to be real careful about how we treat those initial disappointments. Because Satan tries to use them against us. Now, remember our word picture. We said, imagine a heart-shaped pillow. This is our other word picture from last week. A heart-shaped pillow. And we said, if you were to place an iron on the top of that heart-shaped pillow, it would, and only left it there for a day, it wouldn't leave much of an impression or a mark. But if you left that heart-shaped pillow, or heart-shaped iron on the pillow, and you left it there for a long period of time, it would leave a mark. It would depress the pillow. Let me say that one more time. I got my tongue tied. If you have a heart-shaped pillow and you take an iron and you place the iron on the top of it, if you only have it there for one day, it's not going to make much of an indentation on a heart-shaped pillow. But if you leave it there for 6 months, it's going to depress the pillow. Depression is anything that's beneath the level of where you or where I think it should be. Anything that's beneath the level of where you think it should be can be a candidate for depression. This is important because one person's level is different from the others. You have athletes who can get depressed because they make $6 million a year and someone who plays the same position makes $8 million. And it could spin them into a downward spiral. They boycott training camp. They stop performing. It turns into a battle in the newspaper. They're depressed. Why? Because it's beneath the level of where they deem their reference group should be. So it's critical to examine your life. Lamentations 3:40, Psalms 139, 2 Corinthians 13:5. They're all the scriptures that talk about search yourself, examine yourself. You have to ask yourself, what are some of the potential areas that I deem beneath the level? Some people could look at this room and deem it a failure. There are people in third world countries, this would be manifestation that they get to worship God without being fired upon, without threats of being bombed. There are meetings, some famous evangelists from our country who go to other countries. There are people who walk miles to sit in an unair-conditioned arena for 5 or 6 hours and nobody moves. Nobody gets up to go to the bathroom. No one's texting. No one's racing to get out of the parking lot. So we want to watch this cycle, the disappointment, circle number 1. Remember, dis means to move away from an appointment. Satan wants to use this, moving you away from a divine appointment, so you get disappointed. So that disappointment, if it happens enough, can lead to discouragement. To move away from courage. I've experienced enough disappointment. Now I don't have the courage to try again.